Here we go.
Approved website.
In-depth news.
On-demand audio.
Podcasts.
And listen live wherever you may be.
WBAP.com.
WBAP.com.
Rob Carson filling in for Rick Roberts. Happy Tuesday. Much on the plate. Going to get to plenty of audio, particularly from Jeff Sessions today, talking about DACA, the phasing out of DACA. And also, I'm going to tie some threads together. I've said the reason why this happened today was because, A, it was a campaign promise by the president. B, I don't know how you could argue otherwise. This president puts American citizens and the United States as a country number one. You know? And also, it was a blatant violation of the Constitution by the previous president. It was a blatant violation of the Constitution by the previous president. Previous president couldn't get the Dreamers Act. The previous president couldn't get DAPA. That's the adult version of it. I'll explain that in a second. Because 26 states said no, and then the Supreme Court said no. That would have been 4 million more people, illegals, made legal in the country. And ultimately, all this is for the Democrat Party is creating a permanent underclass and upsetting the balance of power in the country in the favor of Democrats for decades to come. That's what it's all about, folks. That's what it's all about. Carolyn Granbury on the phone. Hello there, Carolyn. Welcome to News Talk 820 WBAP.
Hi. You were talking about illegal aliens, and I was just curious. I don't understand how somebody can pay taxes in this country when they're an illegal alien. I don't understand how their children go to school here if they're illegal. There's just a lot of things here. I just don't understand how. I took my child to the health department to get immunizations before school, and they were talking about what my address was and all of this, and I had a woman lean over to me and ask me why I was there. Because I didn't want to spend $300 on immunization, and the health department is founded and funded by my taxes, which I've lived in Texas all my life. I know how people pay cash for this and cash for that as far as getting their yards done and things like that. And I'm just amazed that we're having this argument.
Why is that? I don't understand. Why do you say that you're amazed we're having the argument?
Because it's just, if it's illegal, it's just illegal.
Yeah.
There are people's children who lose their parents because they do something illegal. Yet these people have more rights than it seems like people who were born here.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that for the longest time, and we still do, by the way, ignore the immigration laws of the country. Absolutely, we've got immigration laws on the books that are plenty for limiting the amount of people who come here, for removing those who are here illegally. And the country largely has been ignoring those laws and not enforcing them for a very long time. And that means municipalities, states. I do believe this happens from both political parties, to be quite honest. Overstayed work visas, people coming here illegally, they can enroll their kids in school. A lot of these kids, like some of these dreamers, can get in-state tuition before your kid can get tuition. And I think this whole repeal of DACA is the beginning of what could be, hopefully, finally, not officially an overhaul of our immigration system, just saying, let's go ahead and enforce the laws that are on the book, Carol.
Well, my daughter-in-law is from Thailand. She went to Georgia Tech, got her degree, and the moment she graduated from Georgia Tech, she was sent back to Thailand.
Yeah.
It took her 6 years to get back into this country and $10,000 worth of attorney fees to do it legally, to where she could get a job. I just think that, we allow these people to come in. I don't care where you're from.
Yeah.
You come into this country, and just like Trump said, be prepared to pay taxes, be prepared to contribute to society.
Yeah.
And this is not a free ride. I have had a job since I was 13 years old, and been paying taxes, had 6 kids. It's like, I'm done. I can't keep paying, 30% and just watch other people.
Yeah, Carol, you got a couple things here. Both of the political parties in this country love the free labor coming across the border. They really do. They get a lot of money from big companies in the country. And listen, I'm all about capitalism, but they get a lot of money from big companies in this country who love that sweet, sweet, cheap labor, regardless of how it impacts American workers, okay? And then you've got the government of Mexico that can unload people on our country and take advantage of our economy through cash remittances back to Mexico, which are a major source of income for their country. So a couple things here. It's a little you scratch your back, I scratch mine. Mexico has no responsibility in all of this. All they got to do is sit back and wait for the money to flow in to people who live there, and they spend it and they pay taxes. And then we get that sweet, sweet, cheap labor.
Right.
That's what it's all about, girl.
I think today's a good day for America,
Yeah, I do too. I do too. Thanks for the phone call. There were some quotes today from Trump's DACA statement. I'll just point him out here real quick because he's a Nazi, right? Isn't that what he's being called? He's being called a Nazi white supremacist. The White House is full of Nazis and all that stuff. And he said, "I do not favor punishing children, most of whom are now adults, for the actions of their parents. But we must also recognize that we are a nation of opportunity because we are a nation of laws." All right. Said this is a gradual process, not a sudden phase out. Permits will not begin to expire for another 6 months and will remain active for up to 24 months. This, in effect, I'm not going to just cut DACA off, but rather provide a window of opportunity for Congress to finally act. And he said, it's time for Congress to finally act. He said, few in Washington expressed any compassion for the millions of Americans victimized by this unfair system. True that. I mean, we're talking about a wholesale assault on our border, particularly since 2012, that allowed people to disappear illegally into the fabric of society without screening. You recall this. You recall what happened after DACA happened. It wasn't just about kids who arrived here since 2007. It was about an influx of people and an avalanche of illegals coming here because of policy. There's nothing bigger when it comes to immigration, particularly illegal immigration, than policy. And the Obama administration's policy sent the message to Mexico, Central and South America that America's doors are open. We're not going to screen you. You might have to spend the night in a holdings area, and then you're gone, man. We'll give you bus tickets, airline tickets, and you're there. And once we get you there, well, we're going to have your family come, right? You can't just have kids here. Got to have mom and dad here, and auntie whatever here, and all that. Back to Trump. Before we ask what is fair to illegal immigrants, we must ask also what is fair to American families, students, taxpayers, and job seekers. That's one of my points I said. That's why it happened today. And he also said we will resolve the DACA issue with heart and compassion, but through the lawful democratic process, while at the same time ensuring that any immigration reform we adopt provides enduring benefits for the American citizens we were elected to serve. Told ya. It's about protecting the American people first. It's a campaign promise, okay? And Barack Obama's implementation of DACA was a violation of the Constitution. All right, I want to get to your calls on this, guys. I've got more theories that I want to share and audio as well. The number here is 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Rosie from Plano, you will be up first. Stick around. I'm Rob Carson, filling in for Rick Roberts on WBAP.
In other words, the immigration law that Congress passed foreclosed this possibility of DACA. In other words, it was inconsistent with the Constitution's separation of powers. That decision was affirmed by the Supreme Court on an equally undivided basis.
Now, Jeff Sessions, of course, commented today about DACA and what it was all about. That wasn't exactly the bite that I wanted, but I'm going to share a few of them. Here is him introducing what was the phasing out of DACA.
Good morning. I'm here today to announce that the program known as DACA that was effectuated under the Obama administration is being rescinded. The DACA program was implemented in 2012 and essentially provided a legal status for recipients for a renewable 2-year term, work authorization, and other benefits, including participation in the Social Security program to 800,000 mostly adult illegal aliens.
Now, I have heard a number of different figures with regard to people who are DACA recipients, okay, people who signed up. Laura Ingraham talking about it.
I think people have to understand what the deferred action for childhood arrivals is really all about. We're not talking about mass deportation of people if Donald Trump doesn't do what, kind of the middle or the left wants him to do on this. It's about giving work permits and federal benefits to people who are as advanced in their age as the age of 36. People think we're talking about like 10 and 11-year-old kids. The median age of Dreamers is about 22, 23 years old. So those are things you have to take into account. Also, I think you can have up to 3 misdemeanors and still apply for this status.
Now, our immigration system has been abused for a very long time. Really, really, really abused during the Obama administration. You had people coming in wholesale across the border, no fear whatsoever of being deported. Meanwhile, you try to do that to Mexico, you're going to get arrested. You're going to get thrown into a third world prison, and you'll get booted out, wholesale, just quickly, immediately. You'll get booted out. So it's strange to me. Why does this happen? Why can Mexico get away with that and we can't get away with that? I mentioned this earlier. Both parties love that sweet, sweet, cheap labor, and they don't care about the American worker that it displaces. And Mexico loves that American money, that payroll money coming back to mom and dad and auntie whoever, to Mexico. Mexico's nothing against, there are a lot of great things about Mexico. I vacation there all the time and everything. But Mexico is a sucker fish on the shark of America. Now, Senator Jeff Flake from Arizona, he says that no, DACA recipients much younger.
DACA kids who were brought across the border. The median age, I think, is 6 years old.
Yes.
For those 800,000 when they came across the border. They should not be punished.
Okay, now, the 6 years old in 2010 was when the Obama administration officially signed DACA in, so that's 7 years. They're 13 is still, the youngest age, apparently, I guess. But he's saying, no, the median age was 6 years old. Laura Ingraham is saying that it's 25 years old, or maybe up to 36 years old. Regardless of what it is, it was a wolf in sheep's clothing. DACA was meant to flood the border with children, and it did. And it did. Do you remember that? I'll never forget it because I thought that memo wasn't even an executive order. When it was happening, I said, this is unbelievable. We had children trekking across the desert, coming into being held briefly and then sent wholesale into the society to disappear. Jeff Sessions talked also about exactly that, something that we've all apparently forgotten. One of the worst parts about this.
In other words, the executive branch, through DACA, deliberately sought to achieve what the legislative branch specifically refused to authorize,
the Dreamers Act,
on multiple occasions. Such an open-ended circumvention of immigration laws was an unconstitutional exercise of authority by the executive branch. The effect of this unilateral executive amnesty,
now listen to this,
among other things, contributed to a surge of minors at the southern border that yielded terrible humanitarian consequences. It also denied jobs to hundreds of thousands of Americans by allowing those same illegal aliens to take those jobs.
Yes. I have written a few notes. DACA was a crass attempt to overrun the border with children. Once the children are here, the parents needed to be here. DAPA was an attempt by the Obama administration to bring in adults. That's what this was all about, man. Bring in the kids, tug the heartstrings. Then the family's got to come in. DACA allowed children to be released wholesale into the fabric of society. Their parents need to come. This is, and I had mentioned this, I was taking some notes, essentially an anchor baby program for children who were born outside of the U.S. but became Americans by not being born here, but by a memo from the Obama administration. These are anchor babies, guys. They're anchor babies who weren't born here. That's what this is all about. I thought that was an interesting thread. That's really what DACA was, to create anchor babies who weren't born here. Kids who would come in here, move into the country, get into the schools, get into the whatever, be taken care of, and then mom and dad need to come. If you disagree, please, I'd love to know your thoughts. 800-288-WBAP. The phones are lit up. And Rosie from Plano, thank you for holding. Welcome to News Talk 820 WBAP. I'm Rob Carson. Go.
Hi, Rob. Thank you for taking my call.
You bet.
First of all, while DACA may seem compassionate, we need to consider, and I believe you already have addressed some of this, the results of accepting this memo or whatever we want to call it.
It was a memo.
That is right. But we say that we shouldn't punish the children for the sins of the parents. But in this regard, right here, we are rewarding the children for the crimes of the parents.
Mm-hmm.
And we're telling parents, get your child here whichever way, and in many, many cases, very dangerous ways, and your child can stay.
Mm-hmm.
So people from all over the world are going to do it, as we have seen already.
Yeah.
The other thing is that we are saying is that only in the U.S. can dreams be fulfilled, and that is not true. Mm-hmm. And we want people to know that, yes, there is opportunity in the United States. But if you are a valedictorian here in the United States, you can learn the language of the people that from wherever you came from, and many times it might be Spanish, but whatever language, these are intelligent young people. They can learn, they can succeed in their home countries. And you know what? Their parents should return also. We're not sending children home by themselves. And I do agree with Laura Ingram that sometimes these children are 30 years old.
Yeah.
Yes, they should return, and their parents should return also.
All right, Rosie, thank you very much for the phone call. Do appreciate it. Let's grab Neil in Coppell. Hello there, Neil, and welcome to News Talk 820 WBAP. Your thoughts?
Yes, what was your name again?
My name is Rob Carson, sir.
Rob. Nice job, buddy.
Thank you, buddy.
Nice hard start off, bud.
Thank you.
Listen, I am, of course, minority, but I first want to say I'm glad you brought this up because I think everybody is forgetting. Are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, and when they first brought all this up, you're exactly right. What should have been brought up: were the children not assigned? They were paying families, I know, a lot of money if they would take them in.
Yep.
Remember, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And they would not tell where they were sending the children.
Yep.
And they even had I believe it was a church here in the Metroplex area that took in a number of them. They kept them for several weeks. They moved them out, and I believe they moved some more in. Now, people are forgetting about that. And, you know, if a parent here in the United States let their child get out and walk down half a block, they'd be on the 5 o'clock news. But yet there is no condemnation of the parents that allowed their children to travel hundreds, if not 1,000 or 2,000 miles, and it'd be exposed to everything that you can imagine. And what kind of example did that set to the children? And what does that say to the children that, in certain circumstances, well, you can do this and it's acceptable. It is not acceptable. And what the parents did should be held accountable. Those children need to be sent back to their parents.
All right, Neil, thanks for the phone call. What people don't realize, and I remember when this was happening, and I was watching slack-jawed in disbelief when DACA originally was implemented, 400,000 children came here, kids. So this wasn't about kids who arrived in 2010 and 2007. It became 400,000 kids coming here Wholesale, I mentioned this, wholesale into the American, into society, being held briefly and sent on, and people were paying thousands of dollars to send their children to the United States. It was policy. The only thing that powerful, the only thing that reaches that far south and around the world is policy. The same way that policy of the Trump administration has caused illegal immigration to drop by 70%. The wall's 70% built, folks. It's already 70%. Policy, powerful policy. If you open the borders and it's a policy, this is what happens. When you say enough is enough, this is what happens. Carlos, Scott, and Doc, you guys will be up next. My name is Rob Carson. You are listening to News Talk 820 WBAP.
Talk 820.
WBAP.com.
Rob Carson filling in for Rick Roberts. I am a talk show host, video and audio podcaster, and nationally syndicated comedy writer. Maybe next hour I'll sprinkle a couple of the illegal immigration parodies I wrote and produced for Rush Limbaugh. Just throw them in there. I got a couple of them I think you're really going to dig. And to people on the left, they're mildly to very offensive. So we'll share some of those. Oh, by the way, I'm on Facebook at Rob Carson Show, Twitter at Rob Carson, and I do a daily podcast that is available on iTunes. All you got to do is go to iTunes. It's free because nobody paid for it. It's on iTunes, and just look for Rob Carson Show. Rob Carson Show, 30 minutes every day. The art of the deal. I'm going to share my thoughts on why Trump is using the art of the deal to pass meaningful, I mean really meaningful immigration reform, and it starts with DACA. Now, I had mentioned that Barack Obama, through a memo, created DACA. 400,000 children streamed across the border, some of them sold into sex trafficking, some of them killed in the desert, some of them abused, and then 2 years later tried to pass through DAPA, which is basically a bill for keeping parents here, deferred action for parents of Americans. You got the babies here, right? You sent them across. They're anchor babies who weren't born here. Now they need their parents. But unfortunately, DAPA didn't work out so much. An executive order that never went into effect because of a lawsuit by 26 states, an injunction ultimately held up by the Supreme Court. That's what the plan was, kids. Couple of million babies and 4 million adults. Upset the balance of power in the favor of Democrats for decades to come. That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. Carlos in College Station. Carlos, welcome to News Talk 820 WBAP. Rob Carson sitting in today. What's up?
Well, I am a son of an immigrant. Yes. I have an immigrant wife, and we are actually going through that process right now. We just got her green card. And the thing that's insulting to me about this whole situation is that people are going off like that these kids somehow are just going to be sent back to a country that they don't know. And you actually mentioned it as well. And there should be some leeway for that. But they should go through the process just like everyone else. And I'm sure the process will take into account those kinds of factors.
Now, Carlos, you're at the beginning. You're at the beginning of a journey to get your wife to become a citizen. You're early into it. How daunting is becoming an American citizen for some? Because I know we need to streamline that process.
There's variables to that. Depends upon if they come here legally or illegally. And as a lot of people have mentioned, the legal process, just getting advice to do the paperwork can be expensive. Jeez. But it's not undoable. Yeah. It's totally possible. We have the green card. We have the right to work. But we had to follow some rules. Okay. But the bigger issue is that I have with all this is people, and you actually mentioned it, like if they're 6 years old, then you're just going to send them back to Mexico and they have to fend for themselves. Well, that doesn't happen. They're going to go back to family if there's family there. Yeah. They're not just going to be sent.
Well, I'm talking about, Carlos, I'm talking about, parents who came here 20 years ago, had the kids. The kids have been raised their entire lives here. The kids who have.
My question is, what happened to those kids 5 years ago, 6 years ago? They didn't leave.
No.
They were here. They figured out a way. And as other people have pointed out, there might be using illegal Social Security cards. Yeah. They might be falsifying information. And right from the get-go, you're telling kids, hey, if you get over here and your parents are breaking the law with the first action that they do by entering the country, how do those kids feel about our laws?
Yeah.
It's just setting up the precedent that the American law doesn't matter.
All right, Carlos, thanks for the phone call. I gotta run because Scott's on the line from Burleson. Hello there, Scott, and welcome to News Talk 820 WBAP. Go.
Hi, Rob. I think that what's really happening, this is part of President Trump's larger picture here. I know he's doing tax relief now as far as policy of, how is the government distributing its resources and who do these resources go to benefit? Are they going to go to the foreigner or are they going to go to the U.S. citizen? Are they going to go, Rob, as you pointed out, to the company that, through a legal bribe pays as a lobbyist, bribes our government, or to the company that creates jobs and, with benefits, good jobs, and maybe keeps those workers for 7 years before
break after this guy?
Are we going to put our resources to the couch potato who doesn't want to work?
Well, let me
person who's working 2 jobs.
Scott, let me tell you, I think that to some, just real quick, I think to some degree the illegal has been placed in front of the American citizen. There was no regard whatsoever to our safety as far as people coming across who were criminal. There was no regard through health screening. There are a lot of students who, if you're an illegal, you can get in-state tuition sooner than someone who was born here. So there were a lot of benefits being given to illegals, and it was all because they're potential Democrat voters. Scott, we got to go. Doc, Matt, Price, you guys are going to be up next. More thoughts on this and why this is, I think, a great example of the art of the deal being done by an outsider in Washington, D.C., and how it may very well work for the very first time. My name is Rob Carson. You are listening to News Talk 820 WBA. Rick Roberts is out today. Rob Carson is filling in for him. Always an honor and a privilege to be on this great radio station. I just want you to know that I don't make my home in Dallas right now, but the prayers of the country are behind the people of Texas. There's so many amazing stories coming out, and I just think that Texas has set the bar for what the country should be. Honestly. Anyway, great to be here today, guys. If you want to follow me on Facebook, it's Rob Carson Show, Twitter at Rob Carson. Talking about DACA and how President Trump has rescinded that. They're going to be phasing it out there. Before I get to that headline today, Chicago reported thousands more votes than voters in 2016. Chicago Republican Party filed a FOIA request about the elections. It turns out that maybe as many as 16,000 more people voted than were voters in the city of Chicago. Imagine that. Can you imagine voter fraud in Chicago? Wow, really? Okay, sure. With today's announcement by the president, by Jeff Sessions, essentially puts the ball rolling toward ending DACA in 6 months. President Obama said that he's going to speak out if Trump cancels DACA. You can go ahead and do that, Mr. President, but your support of DACA, among other things, is the reason why we have a Republican Senate, House of Representatives, and also the presidency, and also a record number of Republican governors and state houses that are run by Republicans. So go ahead and sound off there, sir. Go ahead and sound off. See how far that gets you. I had mentioned earlier this could be the ultimate art of the deal. And I saw a piece today that kind of validated what I was thinking. It's by Joel Pollack. The idea of a 6-month deadline puts the responsibility and the pressure back on the legislature. The same should have been done with Obamacare. I'm going to explain why those are very different and should be fairly obvious. But they are very different. Basically, says that if Congress doesn't fix immigration, then Trump's DACA reversal would be the law of the land and would put the pressure on those who want to accommodate the dreamers. So you've got all of these people on both sides of the political equation, Republicans and Democrats, who love the dreamers because they're cheap labor, among other things, guys. Basically, the president is saying, hey, man, you better come up with something that I agree on as far as reforming immigration, or it's all on the table. Back to this piece by Joel Pollack. If they insist on retaining 100% of DACA, which covers 800,000 or so illegals, some of whom are ambitious valedictorians and some who are decidedly not, then they will lose all of them. So that's kind of a line in the sand there. That's the art of the deal. I believe this is the art of the deal. This is saying basically, hey, man, you don't get it fixed. That DACA's gone. Now, the difference between waiting for 6 months for Obamacare is DACA was implemented illegally. Obamacare was against the will of the people using legislative chicanery. This may be the first time in a very long time a president, an outsider, came into Washington, D.C. and actually fixed something that Congress has been saying to the American people needs to be fixed, but never gets fixed. Let's look at Social Security. We got to fix it. We got to fix it. You never fix it. Let's look at the tax code. The tax code. Okay, we're going to simplify the tax code. How many years have we heard they're going to simplify the tax code? And they never do. They never do. Now it's the national debt. The national debt. We got to do something about the national debt. Are you hearing anybody talking about the national debt now? Now that we're $20 trillion in debt? No. None of it ever gets fixed because it's working beautifully for Washington, D.C. It's working beautiful. Do you know how many of the country's top 10 richest counties are in Washington, D.C. area? You want to guess? You're thinking 5. No, you'd be wrong. 6? No. 7. 7 of the richest counties in America are in Washington, D.C., folks. And you're writing checks to them. It's just unbelievable. And there are lobbyists and corporations around the country who love that cheap labor coming up from Mexico across the border. They don't want to fix it. They don't want to fix it. Doc has been holding a while, and Doc, I want to welcome you to News Talk 820 WBAP. Your thoughts, my friend? Hello, Doc. Are you there? I think Doc might have hung up. Doc, if you get a chance to call back, I do greatly appreciate you hanging on, man. But sometimes I can't get everybody in when I exactly want to get them in there. Matt from Watauga is on the phone. Hello there, Matt, and welcome to News Talk 820 WBAP.
Hello, sir. How are you doing today?
Glorious, my friend. What's up?
Well, I just think ending DACA is essentially we're going to enforce the law of the land.
Yeah.
And I think it's so funny they're like, oh, my gosh, they're going to enforce laws. That's like a bank robber getting caught and saying, hey, you shouldn't enforce the law because if you throw me in jail, you'll break up my family.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You broke the law, you go to jail.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing is,
yes,
the kids that are brought up, they were forced up here because they were, how do I put this? They were basically pushed up here because they were excess population. The socialist little dictatorships in the South didn't want. Mm-hmm. Their population is getting too big. They can't control it.
Well, man, I think that a lot of it was policy from the Obama administration, the promise of sending children to the United States to become a part of society, and then the families would have to come too. That's what I think. Yeah. You know, I'd love to know if you disagree, please, because that was what DACA was, and then what was coming next was the deferred action for parents of Americans, and those Americans just happen to be those kids who came across the border because of DACA.
I used to live in Philadelphia. Trust me, I've lived in California and Philadelphia. This is crazy. They don't check for IDs. They don't do anything. That's like if you're illegal, you can stab somebody and run and get away with it. But the thing is that I think from Democrats' perspective, new voters, new people tied to government that need government that will need us to take care of them. Therefore, we'll get growing.
And vote Democrat.
The dictators down there don't want excess people because the one reason you'll change a government, the one reason rebellions happen, and any sort of rebellion. By the way, I like rebellions over revolutions because revolutions just begin where they ended.
Go ahead.
That's the problem with Mexico. They keep having revolutions where let's all throw the dictator. Oh yeah, we all do. We all get out of the farms. We all go fight. We all do this, and they appoint the guy who led them as the next dictator. They all go back to the fields and tell their grandchildren how wonderful things were during the
Yeah, I got you.
Revolution.
I got you.
It's bull. But those guys down there don't want excess kids because kids will cause their parents to think, hey, we need to do another, 2 or 3 years. And then they'll get kids. 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 And then they'll revolution again because they won't rebel. It's not their nature.
Well, that is an interesting theory, my friend. I greatly appreciate it. Now I got Doc back on the line. Doc, welcome to News Talk 820 WBAP. Your thoughts, my friend?
Thank you so much. I
You
want
bet,
to explain how it's done right.
Yes.
I have a man that's been working for me for 16 years. Green card has always been legal, wanted to get his family across. Now, before I explain what went on there, about 5 years ago or whenever Obama implemented DACA, he came back from Mexico after spending time with his family and said Obama was all over the TV encouraging people to come across the border.
I told you, man, it was all about policy, Doc. It was the only thing big enough to move 400,000 children across the border was a very clear policy broadcast by the President of the United States at the time, Barack Obama.
Well, he was on the TV down in Mexico telling them to, come on across.
I know.
Now, Andres wanted to bring his family across, and I said we were going to do it right.
Yes,
we
sir.
did. We spent time and thousands of dollars getting his entire family across.
Good.
When they came a year and a half ago, when they got off the bus, his two oldest sons, the day they got off the bus, started working, haven't quit since. His youngest son was entering high school, could not speak English. He immersed himself in English, became fluent, doing good with his grades, washing dishes at the local restaurant, moved up the chain to even be a cook. His goal in life is to graduate, join the armed services, and become an American citizen.
Bravo.
That's the way it's done.
Bravo. Doc, that was the story of the day, man. That's the way it's done. You can have that Mexican flag, but the American flag hangs above it. That is a great story and worth hanging around for, man. Do appreciate it. Price, Justin, Ed, you guys will be up next, and more thoughts and audio from Jeff Sessions, among others. My name is Rob Carson. You were listening to News Talk 820 WBAP. Rick Roberts Show. Rob Carson is my name. I get to fill in for Rick. He's out today. He'll be back tomorrow. Hope you had a glorious Labor Day weekend. It's an honor and a privilege to be here on this great radio station, The Blowtorch, News Talk 820 WBAP. If you want to check out my Facebook page, it's Rob Carson Show, Twitter feed at Rob Carson, and I've got a podcast I do every day that's half an hour long. And just go to iTunes and say, and type in the Rob Carson Show. Oh, yeah, I'm on the do you have one of those Alexas? I've got one right behind me. I shudder to say her name because she fires up when, do you know the personal assistant, the Alexa? If you just say, Alexa, play the Rob Carson Show podcast, the latest episode will pop up. It's just pretty cool. It's pretty cool, yeah. Kind of a big deal. So we're talking about DACA and the president there. Alexa, stop. She's right behind me. It's like having a second wife, except for I tell her what to do instead of vice versa. Anyway, we're talking about DACA, and what I'm calling DACA is the Anchor Baby program for children born outside the United States. It was a very crass attempt by the Barack Obama administration to bring children into the country illegally, then try to pass or implement DAPA, which was the parental version, which brought the 4 million parents in as well. All right. So anyway, that's my theory. And I think it rings true. This was nothing more. This isn't about kids whose parents came here 30 years ago or 20 years ago who had children here and they've worked in the shadows. And these kids have always known English and they've always worn Nikes and they've always gone to a public school in America and suddenly sending them back home. That was not what DACA was all about. DACA was not. That's fairly benevolent. And how do you solve that? Well, you basically say, you kids have been here your entire life. You're essentially American kids. Your allegiances are to America. You speak the language. It's not your fault you're here. That, I think, is, I won't say it's noble, but at the same time, I think it's fair to let those kids stay here. And if the parents did that and they're productive citizens, then they can stay with their kids. But you're not going to vote. You're not going to vote, kids, because that's the whole reason why the Democrat Party particularly likes to have illegals here. They want to create a permanent underclass, and they want to have Democrat voters. I think that's fairly evident. Let's go to Price in Greenville. Hello, Price, and thank you for holding. Welcome to News Talk 820 WBAP. Your thoughts?
Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, man.
The idea that this is DACA, a lady on TV this morning on Fox News said that these are our doctors and our teachers in the country. So if they can identify 800,000 DACA subjected so-called children, well, then they should be able to identify 1.6 million parents. How come they're still here? Why aren't they on their way south?
Yeah.
You've been dancing on that most of the last half hour or more.
Yeah, I know, Price.
Is that the baby is still going to be here. If we keep them, they're going to say, well, you can't break up the family, so that 1.6 million parents are still going to be here too, and yet they're the ones that broke the law and get away scot-free now.
I understand, Price. So maybe what would your compromise be if a kid is 18 years old, then mom and dad can go home, or is it fair to send mom and dad home when the baby's only 7?
Well, with the baby on 7, I don't see why they can't take the baby with them.
Yeah, right.
And if the baby's 18, I don't think it's a baby. They're old enough, quote, to vote, depending on
to stay
who
here.
you talk to. And therefore, they could stay here, but the parents can still go.
All right, Price.
I see no reason for the parent.
All right, very good, my friend. Do appreciate it. So Price is basically saying if you came here illegally, even if you were, leading a good life, you are not a criminal, you came here for a better life, you had children, you go home. Okay, that's fine. I don't think there's a cut and dried solution here. I think the most important thing that we take today is that Donald Trump has basically said to both parties, fix the immigration system, or it's not really a law, my action becomes the law of the land. So all of these people that were protected under DACA, they could go. Do I think that Donald Trump wants to throw children out of the country? No, I don't. I don't think he does. But now he has a card in or an arrow in his quiver that might make both parties go, God, we really better work on this. We really better make something happen, because this guy is actually telling Border Patrol agents and the DHS, do your job. I think he's serious, guys. Let's go to Justin in Fort Worth. Justin, welcome to News Talk 820 WBAP. I'm Rob Carson. Your thoughts?
Well, thank you. My biggest qualm is the downfall of the education process that has resulted from all this, and where I experienced having my son become a minority in his school, and I have utmost high regard and respect for the entire Hispanic community and the many immigrants that have come for the last hundreds of years and who were here before the white man came and all of that. But when the school system here in Fort Worth sets up a system where they cater to these new immigrant families, none of whom can speak English, and then they segregate the classrooms into non-English speakers, and then it becomes a segregated classroom, and they dumb down the classes. And my son, being who he is, I am Anglo, we've tried to educate him here at the house and all of that. He's probably one of the more educated ones in his class, but he ends up being very bored.
Yeah.
Break after this guy.
Well, Justin, go ahead real quick. You got about 15 seconds. Go.
For his lunch. We also are having to pay for his lunch because we don't qualify for the free lunch.
Yeah.
So we're paying for all of his friends' lunches. And all of that. So
all right, Justin, listen, I got to take a break. I do have some thoughts on that, and I'm going to share the experience that my children have had being minorities in school versus being with largely kids who were born here or at least maybe moved here and speak English. I'm going to share that. Ed and Steve, you guys will be up next as well. My name is Rob Carson. You are listening to News Talk 820 WBAP.
To have a lawful system of immigration that serves the national interest, we cannot admit everyone who would like to come here. It's just that simple.
It is that simple. I mean, we aren't, listen, we're the great American melting pot. Don't get me wrong. You know, we're all, many of us, sons of immigrants. I don't know myself. I'm adopted. I haven't found my parents. I just, by the way, Rob Carson filling in today for Rick Scott. So I don't know what my heritage is. I need to get one of those DNA tests, and I need to find my parents. But anyway, we are the greatest melting pot in the history of mankind. We have nothing to be ashamed of. We've had some bumps in the road, some mistakes in the past, big time. Every country does, but we always try to become a more perfect union. But there's never been a greater experiment in the history of mankind as far as diversity of population. Do you ever watch the Olympics? You ever look at the Chinese Olympic team? What's the one thing you notice about the Chinese Olympic team? They're all Chinese. Okay? Do you ever notice that about some of these other countries? Most of them, they're all their nationality. They're all the Korean team. They're all Koreans. The whatever, they're all this or that. United States, we got it's like the Westminster Dog Show. We got every kind of breed and shape, size, and everything. So we don't owe the world anything about this. We don't owe the world the ability for you to come here. You got to earn your way in, man. And you certainly, we've been kind of bee-slapped by the third world for a number of years now. And then we're made to feel guilty about it. It's a little ridiculous. And today, President basically says this DACA, deferred action for children, is going away. Now, in case you haven't been paying attention, it all started with the Dreamers Act. Okay, and then that was voted down. That would have made illegal 1 million folks. So President Obama decided to say, hey, we'll pull at the heartstrings and we will ask for deferred action for children. All right? We'll do that. And he implemented that without an executive order, without an act of Congress. 400,000 children streamed across the border. So then the president wanted to try this thing called DAPA, which for parents of Americans, they call them. Parents for Americans, right? Well, 26 states brought a suit against it. The Supreme Court said, no. But I mean, we're well on the way to dreamers, then kids, then parents. How many millions of folks? The minimum estimate, 6 million people coming here illegally, allowed to come into the country and stay. Upset the balance of power, create a permanent lower class that is beholden to Democrats, and provide tons of free labor for big business and lobbyists who've made Washington, D.C. and the 7 counties around Washington, D.C. the richest places in America to be. That's my theory, and I'm sticking by it. Before we go to your phone calls, I did promise a little bit of satire. Here, in the height of the immigration debate, is a bit I did for Mr. Limbaugh.
What's for dinner, Mom? I made meatloaf. Meatloaf? Not again.
Family dinner nights don't need to be boring anymore, thanks to Old Obama.
Yay!
We're flooding your pantry with great south-of-the-border entrees that are so good, they should be illegal.
Can my friends stay for dinner?
With Old Obama in the house, they can stay as long as they want.
No longer will the flavors of Guatemala, Honduras, and Ecuador be alien in this country, thanks to Old Obama.
Why, the pantry's getting a little crowded.
Old Obama, another fine product of executive action.
All right, there you go. So that's that's what it was all about, man. And they changed, it's a deferred action for childhood arrivals. And then the deferred action for parents of Americans, because those children who arrived are now Americans, you see. Ed in Dallas. Hello, Ed, and welcome to News Dog 820 WBAP. Rob Carson filling in. What's going on?
Hey, Rob, you're firing on all cylinders today, my man.
Thank you, buddy.
Here's the thing. It's called deferred action in the first 2 words, which means that they are still here illegally. So it's not deferred action to citizenship, anything like that. these people are here illegally. Like I said, it was not an executive order. It was an executive mandate. So they didn't get any legal review. Now, these people need to realize that the crack house has closed down via Obama, and that the crack house is not going to be open again unless you get some other freaking live in there. Yeah. Now, we have got a pseudo-conservative that is enforcing the rule of law, which is what we need. Yeah. And we're going through withdrawal now since we don't get the crack pipes, since the libs aren't getting whatever they want, and they are just going through the roof.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I'm so glad to see it.
Well, I had mentioned earlier, Ed, and I don't know if you were listening, there are three reasons why this happened. One of them is that I believe, and as much as you may dislike or whatever Donald Trump, I believe he puts the needs of our country and its citizenry first. I really believe that. Second of all, it was a campaign. It was a campaign. Yes, it is. It's his job. And he's the first person willing to do it in a long time. He was a campaign.
If I may,
go.
I'm sorry. If I may just interject one thing, the Republicans on the Hill were saying, "Oh well, we need to go along with this because we want other people to like us. We want the ethnicities to like us. We want these other people to like us." They are never going to like Republicans or conservatives because the mainstream media will not allow it.
Yeah.
The schools will not allow it.
Yeah.
The universities won't allow it. The social workers won't allow it. None of them will allow it.
Yeah. Well, I think that I do believe this is the ultimate example of the art of the deal. There's a guy who took an executive action and crumpled it up, an executive action that people went along with because it meant cheap labor, among other things. For the Democrat, it also meant more votes. And this president now is showing that he means business with regard to immigration in the country. We've seen a decline of up to 70% of illegals entering the country just with policy. And you also see a president who said, okay, Border Patrol, okay, DHS, do your job. I'm going to untie your hands. And now that's behind it. And he's saying also DACA's going away. So you got 6 months to fix this immigration system. And that means it may not mean rewriting law, but it will mean enforcing the law that's on the books. You know what I'm saying, Ed?
I know what you're saying, and the wonderful thing about that is that he practically bitch slapped the entire group there.
Yes. I think
he put the ultimate boomby on them.
I think so too, man. I do, man. That's it.
And I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
All right, Ed. Thanks for the phone call. All right, buddy. Let's go to Steve real quick. Steve and Alan. How you doing there, Steve? Welcome to News Talk 820 WBAP.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, what about our immigration system is broken?
Oh, there's nothing broken about it. It's
broken.
No,
I keep hearing about it from people who are hell-bent on breaking it.
I'm with you, Steve, and I've never said the immigration system was broken. What's broken is the fact that we've got plenty of laws on the books, but it's just being bent and misshapen and not enforced for a lot of different reasons for both parties, their interests. So I don't think it's broken. The laws are in place. It's just not being enforced. Go ahead.
Well, it's like listening to rich kids who will rent a hotel room and want to break it up like they're roadies from the Who or something like that. Yes. And then they complain about the TV's not working.
That's a great analogy. They wreck the place and then complain that it's not working. That's a great point, Steve. Greatly do appreciate your thoughts on it. And I've got some other. I do want to mention. I want to talk about my kids in school. I had a call earlier and I got distracted by your great points. By the way, I've got a few other things. Certainly, I've got some more audio I want to get to, and more of your thoughts on this whole phase out or fade away of DACA today. Do you feel like this is the right thing to do? What do you want to see done? What do you want to see happen? What do you want to do with kids who are here I just want to talk about kids who've been raised here and they just happen to be the kids of illegal immigrants. What do you want to do about them? What do you want to do about the parents? And what are we going to have to see in 6 months that would make you happy from Congress? Love to know your thoughts. 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. My name is Rob Carson, filling in for Rick Roberts on News Talk 820 WBAP. Rick Roberts Show. Rick is out today. Rob Carson is my name. I am filling in. And we've got plenty to get to. More audio from Jeff Sessions today, talking about the wind down of DACA. Also going to get to Chris Kobach. He is he's a hawk with regard to immigration. He's the Attorney General of the state of Kansas and advising the Trump White House. He's pretty hardcore. I know Chris, actually. He worked at a radio station that I worked at the same time. He does a weekend show, even as the Secretary of State of Kansas. And he's basically saying, I don't care what your age is. If you're not here legally, go by. Go get in line. Go get in line. So we'll get to all of that. And your thoughts as well on this DACA wind down. The number 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. I mentioned earlier, we're a melting pot like the world has never seen before. Don't you remember Schoolhouse Rock when you were a kid? Great American Melting Pot. There was a time in this country we actually admired our country, even though its faults. We had our faults. We were a slave country, although many states stopped slavery before the year 1800 in this country. Slavery was the way of the world, kids. It was the way of the world. It still is in some countries, by the way. And we have fought and we have died. We have done some wrong things. We've done some very, very right things in our history. And there's been no greater engine for economic and individual freedom in the history of mankind. It didn't happen. There's never been anything like it. We changed the world. We changed the world. We freed more people. Other countries don't think about freeing people. We have bodies buried in those countries from our soldiers who went there to free people and died on their shores while their parents and their families were here. They died alone on other countries' shores so we could secure their freedom. We were divided in 1861 to 1865. One half of the country versus another, brother versus brother. This has been an epic struggle. And now we've got a bunch of people looking at America because we want to enforce immigration laws, which have been around forever and which are reasonable. You want to come here legally. Say that you are ready to leave your country of origin behind. Become a proud American. Learn to speak the language. Learn to appreciate the history. Not just come here, disappear into the shadows, and send money back home. I don't feel guilty about this. And I get so dang tired of people trying to guilt you, and every Democrat right now is, you're gonna destroy families. You're a racist. You don't like brown people. Dear God, never said anything about brown people in my life, and suddenly I'm a racist. I mean, really? Really? We're a benevolent and kind and awesome people. My God, if the last 2 weeks haven't shown you that, I mean, come on, man. I don't feel guilty about it. I'm tired of people throwing that in my face. The next step is going to be this legislation, the RAISE Act. That's going to be next. And that's another very serious attempt at, settling things down so we're not being overrun, so the people of this country who are citizens legally and who were born here do not suffer because of an out-of-control immigration policy that lets anybody in regardless of what. Let's go to, let's see, Joe on the road. Joe, welcome to News Talk 820 WBAP. Your thoughts on a DACA repeal today?
Yes, it is. Thank you very much for taking my call. I want to give you the Joe immigration plan.
Yes, sir.
I've been thinking about this a long time, and actually have tried to communicate this with some of my representatives. I feel like that the challenge with immigration is we're not obviously enforcing the law the way that we should, but if we made a significant fine for people that are here illegally. You have a coming out of the closet day, and pick a day. January 1st. Everybody who's here illegally, you got to come out of the closet. When you come out of the closet, we do a background check. If you haven't committed a crime, then you're going to have to pay a fine. And it's not a one-time fine. It's a percentage of your income. Just like we take income tax out, Social Security tax, you take a being here illegal tax, maybe 20% or so of your income for a number of years, 2, 3, 4, 5, figure out some number that makes sense. And that way, those people who don't want to come out, hey, if you're here illegally and you don't come out, then you get deported. But if you come out and you say, I'm here, then you get a portion of your income taken out to pay the fine for breaking the law. That would apply also to children who have come here with their parents who have, they maybe didn't on purpose break the law.
1 minute.
Work, they can stay in the United States as long as they pay a fine, learn to speak English, and get that thing going.
Now,
I don't see why something like that won't work.
I don't know if we can find our way to it, but I will tell you, if you look at for instance, the RAISE Act, there are some other things. You're going to have to learn English. You're going to have to, do some of the things that you said, and you're going to have to assimilate into the population. I would also say that for those of you who came here illegally, you don't get to vote, Joe. That's just it. And I'm going to say just for the rest of your life, sorry. Your children who were born here, then they can get the pathway to citizenship, but you ain't going to get the vote. Joe, thanks for the call. Do appreciate it. Paul, Brian, Rocky, you guys will be up next. I've got many more thoughts on this and also a little more comedy as well coming up. The number 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Rob Carson filling in today on News Talk 820 WBAP.
Starts. Rick Roberts starts right now.
Rick Roberts is off today. My name is Rob Carson. I get to fill in. It is an honor and a privilege to be here. The number here, guys, is 800-288-WBAP, 1-800-288-WBAP. Big story of the day today. Jeff Sessions coming out and saying basically that DACA, which has been in effect since 2010, and by the way, has resulted in 400,000 minors entering the country illegally, by design, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. Well, Attorney General says it's going bye-bye, and you got 6 minutes to fix immigration.
Good morning. I'm here today to announce that the program known as DACA that was effectuated under the Obama administration is being rescinded.
Effectuated? I haven't heard that word before, but that's cool.
The DACA program was implemented in 2012 and essentially provided a legal status for recipients for a renewable 2-year term, work authorization, and other benefits, including participation in the Social Security program to 800,000 mostly adult illegal aliens. The policy was implemented unilaterally to great controversy and legal concern after Congress rejected legislative proposals to extend similar benefits on numerous occasions to this same group of illegal aliens.
Okay, and that's essentially what it was. It started out the DREAM Act. That was rejected by Congress. So Barack Obama, I won't even say through executive fiat. It was more of I've heard it's described as a memo, DACA, all right? And then he tried DAPA, which is Deferred Action for Parents of Americans. And this was by design, guys. I mean, I don't have much of a memory. I've got the short-term memory of a fruit fly. But that's the way it was. This is what it was supposed to be. If you can't legalize people wholesale, okay, we'll bring the kids in. And we'll run all sorts of ads, and we'll make sure that everybody in Mexico and Central and South America know that the door's open. And you don't get 400,000 people streaming across the border unless they know about the policy. Okay, so that happened. You bring the kids in, they stay in a shelter or whatever, and then they're released wholesale in the country. You get a bus ticket, you get a plane ticket. Many of these families that sent the kid across paid thousands of dollars. Many of these children, sex trafficked. Some died. Some may, who the heck knows? So they may still be being abused. Then we'll roll out DAPA. Bring the parents in. 26 states said no. Supreme Court said no. Dang it. The Obama administration loses its opportunity, or at least has stunted the opportunity, of creating, what I mentioned earlier, a permanent underclass and lots of Democrat voters. The Republican Party loses a lot of cheap labor for the companies that lobby them. Washington, D.C. takes a hit, even though 7 of the most rich counties in America surround the Washington, D.C. area. The American people wanted this to happen. They wanted to see our immigration laws enforced. Maybe not the wholesale just release of people and kicking people out of the country. Just, hey, there are people suffering in this country. There are a lot of, look at MS-13. We just heard of 2 murders in the Dallas area. You suppose those 2 guys were here legally? You suppose they were dreamers? One of them beheaded somebody. I don't know, that's dreaming. But this is where we are right now. And, of course, if you agree with repealing DACA, you're a racist and you're a Nazi and you're an awful person. See, I was a kid in the 1970s. I'm a Gen Xer. And, I never thought, I didn't care if you were brown or green or whatever. I always just had respect for the country. And I'll just go ahead and I'm going to go a little flashback here. This is I had mentioned this earlier, Schoolhouse Rock. I want you to listen to this and see if you this is like 1977. Now I'm seeing this. It's a Statue of Liberty, and she's got a cookbook. And in the cookbook are all these recipes. And one of them says Great American Melting Pot. And it says the ingredients: Armenians, Africans, English, Dutch, Italians, Chinese, Poles, Irish, German, Puerto Ricans, Portuguese, Spaniards, Swedes, Norwegians, brown, Cubans, Mexicans, Koreans. I don't see brown people excluded on that. I don't see, we hate black people on that. And that was 40 years ago. And yet there are people in this country who want to take us back to 1968, back to 1919, back to 1861. It's remarkable. It really is remarkable. Your thoughts on the DACA phase out, I guess. Paul from Justin is on the line, been holding for a while. Welcome, Paul, to News Talk 820 WBAP. Your thoughts?
Hey, Rob, how you doing?
I'm glorious, brother.
Mine's pretty quick. What I've found watching all the media and watching the news and just living life and living in Texas and traveling the U.S., a lot of the people come to this country want to come to the country. But lately, I know you were talking about the big melting pot, America being the big melting pot. It seems as though the fire under the pot is not hot enough to melt them. They want to come to our country. They don't want to assimilate. They want to take advantage of what our country has to offer. But they do not want to be part of our country. They very much want to completely stay 100% their culture and not try to assimilate in any way into this great country and, help promote this country and help, this country grow in a positive way. They come in and they become a vampire or a vacuum, and they just take and take and take, and they fight our laws, they fight our ways. And, I have no problem with immigrants coming over. But like any other country in the world, you go there, they don't change for you. You have to change for them.
Yeah. And
it just seems I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, there are a lot of people who want to come here and for some odd, inane reason, make the United States more like the country they're leaving. And I've always said, like, countries like Mexico, why in the heck don't you try to be more like us rather than bleeding your most valuable natural resource, which is your people? But as I'd mentioned earlier, they like them. It's like that marriage, when you talk about marriage It's an analogy people make about women and sex. And if you're cool with premarital sex, then, why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? Same way with people coming here. If you can just come here and live and send money home and enjoy a nice place to live and a standard of living that you don't have to without learning the language and learning the history and appreciating it and putting America first, then why even bother? You're already getting the milk. You don't need the cow there, Paul. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I mean, our laws aren't being followed. The laws that our lawmakers wrote in the law books, they're arguing against the laws that they're supposed to be promoting, that they've written, that they've started becoming politicians to try to help enforce and write new laws. But it's like they pat themselves in the back and they punch themselves in the head with the same hand.
Yes, and
we can't get a standard for these people, and that's what's really sad is there are a lot of good people that come over to this country illegally, and they seriously want to become Americans, but there's a lot of bureaucratic just crap in the way they have to go through.
Yeah.
But still, there is a standard they have to meet because this is America. We don't want the worst of every country. We want the best of every country because we want to be the best country. We want to be able to continue to grow and help other countries.
Yeah, we're not here to be the world's welfare system. We aren't.
Exactly.
That's not it, man. That's not it. And yet somehow we're made to feel bad because we want people who are educated, people who want to love America, leave where they came behind while appreciating their heritage, but putting America first. We're made to feel bad about that, Paul.
Yeah, and if you come from a third world country, it's a third world country for a reason. The way of thinking is not working. Come over here, assimilate, become successful in whatever you do. Find your happiness, what you consider success, but leave the third world country ways in the third world country.
Yeah. All right, Paul. Hey, got to run. I got to run, brother. Do appreciate it. Rocky in Frisco, you hold on. You'll be up next. Manuel, you're going to be up as well. Your phone calls are welcome. 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Rob Carson filling in on News Talk 820 WBAP.
20 a.m. WBAP.
WBAP.com.
Rob Carson filling in for Rick Roberts. I'm having the time of my life. I hope you're enjoying the show because it's a real honor for me to be here. It's always just wonderful to be invited. And Rick, I thank you for letting me try to fill your shoes. It's pretty sweet. 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Also, I'm on Facebook at Rob Carson Show, Twitter at Rob Carson. On my Facebook and Twitter, you'll see some things that are not just political. I don't do just politics. I also cook. It's kind of funny. I would say, we can disagree on politics, but we won't disagree on ribs unless you're a vegan, and that's the case. You have an eating disorder. This weekend, I did pineapple salsa. And then I did Korean summer rolls. And despite the fact that I am glad that DACA is going away, it's okay to make food from other countries for me because I'm not a racist. So anyway, you can see that again, Rob Carson Show at Facebook. And I have a podcast that I do every day, and it's available on iTunes. Just look up Rob Carson Show, iTunes, and you can download it for free. And I know that's a lot to remember. Anyway, we're talking about basically the wind down of DACA. And we've got actually somebody on the phone who says he was a recipient of DACA, Francisco from Dallas. Francisco, welcome to WBAP. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, my friend. Go right ahead.
Hey, well, my thoughts on this is, I'm a Trump supporter, and, I'm still a recipient now. And I came here since I was 5 years old. Okay. I just want to get your thoughts on this. What do you think has to be done? Because, I thank the United States for all that it has given me, all the opportunities. Yeah. And, if it were to go to war, I think I'll be the first one in line to go. And I owe everything I have to the United States.
Francisco, let me ask you this. You came here when you were 5, and your parents brought you here. They came here illegally, and they work and I'm assuming they pay taxes and stuff like that.
They pay taxes. Yes,
okay, I get you. Why did they come here? Let me just ask you. Did they come here because they wanted to live the dream? What's going on?
A better future, man. I mean, it was dangerous to where we were from. We were poor. Yeah. They didn't have money to eat, They made up their decision and they moved. So,
well, Francisco, what I have to say, I think, me personally, Francisco, I think you need to stay and you get a pathway to citizenship. because you're a kid. I don't believe you can go. Where's your country of origin? Where are your folks from?
Mexico.
From Mexico. I think it would be unfair to send you back there, Francisco, because you grew up here. Your parents came here illegally. I think that if they're productive citizens and they work hard. The only thing that I would say is I don't think that because you broke that and you did that original sin, you should be able to vote. That's the only thing that I say. And you may disagree with me. I'd love to know your thoughts, Francisco.
I mean, I see why people don't want, a lot of immigrants. And, I agree with it. I mean, me as an immigrant, I see your point. I don't disagree with you because I know how you guys feel that we come and take your jobs. And, you know what I mean?
No. I think most people in America are benevolent and kind and understanding. I think that when our immigration system has been abused to the detriment of people who are citizens legally, people who are born here, I think that don't ever think that the American people, 99% of the American people realize our history of being a melting pot. Let me ask you this, Francisco. I'm sure you would like to pursue the dream of being a citizen of the United States, right?
Yeah, of course.
What are you going to have to do that, buddy?
I mean, honestly, you think it's not that easy. Luckily, I'm on process because my wife is a citizen.
Okay, very good.
And but I mean, it's just not as easy as other people think. They say. The thing I don't like is they say get in line, and it takes 10, 20 years. And people don't have that, and I sympathize with them because there's people who love this country and they came here when they were little, and I just think it sucks for they gave them a great opportunity to work, be productive citizens, and they just kind of took that away from them. And I have a lot of friends that. No, they don't want to go back. They want to stay because this is their country.
I get you, Francisco. Listen, and listen to this. I guess this doesn't make me a conservative, but I think if you came here when you were 5 years old and all you've known, how old are you now, Francisco? If you don't mind my asking.
I'm 30 years old.
So you've been here for 25 years of your life. You were not here for 5. I think you should be given a pathway to citizenship if you're willing to put your take the oath. You already know the language. I think it would be unfair to send you somewhere. And okay, that makes me not a conservative, even though I am. Francisco, thanks, and the best of luck to you, my friend. Bless you, and thank you for listening. Do appreciate it. Manuel on line 1 in Fort Worth. Hello, Manuel, and welcome to News Talk 820 WBAP. What's going on, man?
Hi, good afternoon.
Yes, sir.
Before 2 guests that you made the greatest comment to me personally, and it was you mentioned it right now with this guy that you just spoke with, that they will not vote. They can, for whatever reason, if the process for the DACA recipients, the ones that are not dangerous, and they might get first residentship, but citizenship, I don't think that they should get it because the main reason why they are here is because the Democratic Party here in the United States allows these things, and some rhinos in the Republican Party as well.
Yeah. What about Manuel? Now, where are you from, and how long have you lived here, if you don't mind my asking?
Okay, I was born here in Texas. Thanks to grace of God, I was born here. My mom and my dad, they became American residents in the 1962. They came here through the Bracero program my father in 1954. And that's how I was born here, along with my siblings.
Listen, Manuel, I've got to run because we have a hard break here. I greatly appreciate I greatly appreciate your perspective on this. Rocky in Frisco and Jim and Emory, you guys will be up next, and we'll have a little more, actually a little satire about immigration on the way. A piece that I did for Mr. Limbaugh during the Obama administration, and again more of your phone calls. I'm Rob Carson on News Talk 820 WBAP. I could do this another 6 hours. I'm having fun.
The Rick Roberts Show.
Staying for another 3.
WBAP News.
I can't wait to land finally.
WBAP's new and improved
So bored.
website.
In-depth news.
On-demand audio.
Podcast.
Learned a lot, though.
Listen live wherever you may be.
WBAP.com.
Podcasting, video podcasting, live Facebook video. Hello. Rick Roberts Show. Rob Carson filling in on News Talk 820. WBAP. Great to be here. And we'll get to your calls in just a second, talking, obviously, the big story of the day. Looks like DACA is going bye-bye. This was a piece of, it was not even a piece of legislation. It was a memo. Deferred action for childhood arrivals was a response to the Dreamers Act going down in flames. The Obama administration, Barack Obama, just decided to, basically open the border to children, because who wants to say no to children? 400,000 of them flooded the border. You remember that? Just coming across the border, detained for a few, then given bus tickets and plane tickets to go throughout the country. And then 2 years later, DAPA came along, which was Deferred Action for Parents of Americans. That's what it's called. 26 states said no. Supreme Court said no. The Obama administration planned to upset the balance of power by flooding the country with illegal Democrat voters went up in flames to some degree. Now, Donald Trump, this is just kind of a recap. He basically told his voters that, number one, America first and Americans first. Second of all, this is why you've elected me. And third of all, what Barack Obama did was unconstitutional. Now, you've got an approach from this administration that involves kind of 3 steps, I guess. Repeal of DACA, the RAISE Act, which would slow and halve the number of people allowed in the country, and ultimately, really restrict the number of green cards so we can bring in the best. And then I'll bet, just because this president has said, you got 6 months to work on it, and now Congress is saying, whoa, this guy means business. Maybe Congress is going to actually have to do something. That might involve having the wall. That might involve actually enforcing the laws, the immigration laws, although the president is already doing that. He's giving DHS and the borders, the Border Patrol, the ability to detain. Then I think it's to some degree the art of the deal at work here. But, of course, everybody on the left is going to be raising heck and saying, that you hate brown people if you support that and all that. Chris Kobach's the Attorney General of the state of Kansas, and he's also advising the Trump administration on a number of fronts, and he is known for his hard-line stance on illegal immigration. Here's what he has to say, and it's a little more of a hard line than I have, actually.
The median age is 25 of a DACA illegal alien, and they can be up to 36 years old and still be getting the amnesty. And they claim to have come in before the age of 16. So first of all, they're not children. Secondly, if we're worried about keeping families together, then the illegal alien parents who brought them here should also be removed to the home country along with the DACA recipient alien. There's nothing wrong with asking people to go home, and if they've been able to violate our laws for 10 years or more, well, congratulations. You got a huge benefit from the American taxpayer. You got the best high school education in the Western Hemisphere, but now it's time to go home, and if you want, get in line and try to come in legally with those hundreds of thousands of your fellow countrymen who are waiting to do it the right way.
Yeah. Okay, wow, that's pretty hardcore. I lean more towards if you're an infant and you're brought here and you've been raised in the country your entire life, you can stay here and you can get a pathway to citizenship. But your folks, not so much. They can stay here if they are law-abiding citizens. They continue to be productive, but they're never going to get the chance to vote. That's that little. Obviously, there are some differences here. Now, Kevin in Dallas says that he is a DACA recipient. Kevin, welcome to News Talk 820 WBAP. Your thoughts on what Mr. Kobach just said and DACA's being gone away. Hello, Kevin. Kevin going once, going twice, and Kevin is gone. Let's go to Rocky in Frisco. Rocky, thanks for holding, my friend, and welcome to News Talk 820 WBAP.
Good afternoon, Mr. Carson.
Yes, sir.
I have a couple of things I'd like to throw to you. Number one, my dad was a green card holder, came over here from Italy.
Okay.
In 1968, had me 1971, and was gone out of the house by 1972. He got his American citizenship, made lots of money, sold off all his assets, back in Rome.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I've been born in America. I've been in America my entire life. I'm American. Okay. I've never seen a slave. Never met a slave owner. Never seen a white only anything. Now, all that being said, I have seen where our society is taking advantage of people and treating them like slaves because we pay them better than what they would make in Mexico.
Yeah.
So they think they're making so much money. Well, no, the corporate entities are still kicking them pretty good and treating them like slaves.
Oh, no, I believe 100% there, Rocky. I think there are a lot of big companies around the country that are saying keep DACA because they enjoy just that. I was just reading a thing today about, for instance, Apple CEO Tim Cook, Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos signed a letter demanding Trump keep DACA. Quote, dreamers are vital to the future of companies and our economy. With them, we grow and create jobs. They are part of why we will continue to have a global competitive advantage. You know why? Because they can pay them less and then Americans. That's really what it's all about. And by the way, dreamers are not, DACA recipients are not the reason why we have a global competitive advantage. Okay? America just kicks butt. Whether you have DACA recipients or not. Don't act like this is the only reason we're successful in the history of the world, Rocky.
What I'd like to point out here is the amazing irony. We'll sit here and take down Southern statues because they represent speckled past from 150 years ago. But at the exact same time, they want to keep the lines open so they can have as many little brown slaves as they can have.
That's a good point, Rocky. That's a good point, man. Thank you for the phone call. Do appreciate it. Now, I had mentioned, and I keep putting this stuff off. Come here. Assimilate, learn the language. Don't expect the country to change for you. If I move to France, then I should parler français. All right? That's the way it is. My kids went to a school in Maryland where 10% white. There were a lot of other kids there, but predominantly Hispanic. A lot of parents here illegally. My kids suffered greatly because when you have English as a second language for everything, it slows things down. My daughter, when we moved, she was reading at a third grade level in fifth grade. She has turned it around. She last year, the most improved student in her class. You've got to move here. You've got to become excellent. You can't expect the country to change for you. You've got to change for the country. That's it. Another story I want to say real quick. A few years ago, had some painters in my neighbor's house. It's painters in the neighbor's house. And I had some high areas in my house. I don't do ladders. I'm terrified of heights. And this guy went over and said, where you guys work, blah, blah, blah. And he was the foreman. He's a guy, I don't know where he's from. Might have been from Mexico. I said, will you come over and just give me an estimate? And he comes over and he goes, well, I'll give you an estimate for the company I work for, and then I'll give you my estimate. Because he wanted to live the American dream. He wanted to have his own company. And I know this is racist of me, but I said to him, I said, man, you speak good English, man. And that's supposedly, that's a microaggression. that's to admire someone for moving from a third world H-hole to the United States and say, dang, you speak English well. You know what he said to me? He wasn't insulted. He said, come out to the driveway. I went out to the driveway. He had a F-450, big dualies on the back. I mean, this is like the silver edition Ford F-450, ladders and paint on the back of that sucker, about a $60,000 truck. And I said to him, he said to me, he goes, see that truck? I said, yeah. He goes, the guys who don't speak English, they drive the truck. The guy who speaks English, he owns the truck. I thought that was cool. Really cool. Let's go to Manuel in Dallas. Hello, sir, and welcome to News Talk 820 WBAP. Go.
Hello. I just wanted to say that I'm a DACA recipient. I've been living here in the U.S. since I was 13.
Break after this guy.
I learned the language pretty quick.
Yeah.
I love this country. I love President Trump. I love what he has done. And I 100% support his action today because it not only pushes Congress to do their job, but it also lets us go back to our family members in Mexico in the future and tell them how beautiful this country is. Now, the only one thing I do not agree with is that we will be deported for good.
Well,
I don't agree with that.
I understand, Kevin, and I don't think you should, by the way. Or Manuel, I'm sorry, that's another line here. Manuel, I understand that. I don't want to see you deported. What do you suppose if Congress is going to act? And your folks still live here in the U.S. after they brought you here?
Yes, and they're illegal also. And my mom is the only one that supports Trump. We all have paid taxes throughout our whole stay here in the United States. And we came here because we were misled.
Okay.
But we came in through a visa, not illegally. So I guess it's a different situation.
What do you suppose, as a country, because your folks came here illegally, what price should they pay for that, other than deportation? And I don't think you should be deported. What do you think?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think they should not be allowed to vote, like you said. I think that's a very good idea, or at least for a good amount of time for them to assimilate into the country, because they still don't speak the language.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. You do.
I want to vote.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? And you were a kid when you were here. Like I said, I appreciate Chris Kobach. I disagree with him. I think we should look at kids who live here, and if they want to live the American dream, we have to screen people for a variety of things, speaking English, criminal background and all this stuff. But I do appreciate your call.
I agree. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I agree with what you said about Chris Kobach. I think that's his name.
Yes.
But one thing I want people to know is that just like me, there's tons of conservative DACA recipients that love this country and absolutely abhor identity politics.
Good for you.
I just want to make that sure.
All right, Matt. Great call, by the way. Thank you, and I wish you all the best, my friend. All right, it's Rob Carson filling in on News Talk 820 WBAP. Back in a second. Rob Carson filling in for Rick Roberts today. I got enough material and enough phone calls to last for 10 hours. I'd love to stick around, but I think the management has had their stomach full of me. I'm glad to be here, guys. By the way, you can check me out on the Facebook at Rob Carson Show, Twitter at Rob Carson, and I do a daily podcast on iTunes and other media under Rob Carson Show. I do believe that I promised you a piece of politically incorrect, illegal immigration satire.
If you're looking for the real south of the border experience, then sneak into Los Aligalos and place your order today.
Welcome to Los Aligalos. Can I take your order?
Yes, I want free health care, a job, I want to protest in the streets, and I want the entire Southwest U.S. returned to its rightful owner, Mexico.
Are you here legally?
That's none of your business.
And right now in Los Aligalos, you can try our new chicken soft border taco. With a tortilla so thin, you can see right through it. No ID, no problem. In the country illegally, no problem. Just cut in line in front of everyone else.
Jace, I'd like a La Raza tostada. Hey, I've been waiting in line here for 10 years.
Hey, tell that to Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi.
Bring the whole gang to Los Aligalos and order our MS-13 special. Order a dozen tacos and we'll throw in one free.
Viva Los Aligalos!
Wear your American flag t-shirt inside out and get a free entry.
That's entree?
Oh, yeah. Now open 24 hours in all border states. Arizona is subject to change.
Okay, there's a bit I wrote and did for Rush Limbaugh during the Obama administration. I think that one got the most complaints. And I'm just saying. Real quick here, we've got, who's been on the, D in North Texas. D, welcome to News Talk 820 WBAP. What's your solution to the whole immigration thing?
Hey, thank you very much, Rob.
You bet.
You know, I've been listening here ever since you come on the air, and I haven't heard anyone say the quick, fast solution that'll throw the Democrats a complete curve is amnesty. Give these kids amnesty, all of them. Okay?
I'm not sure I understand why that's going to fix the problem. Go ahead.
Wait.
Yeah.
You're expanding the tax base. You're making Republicans out of them. And believe me, it's contagious. In fact, I don't know why we had such a problem with this. If they're extremely vetted, we know they're not criminals, make them citizens.
All right.
Give them amnesty.
All
They're
right.
going to be contributing to society. Why not? Now, believe me, okay, I am a gun-toting, Bible-thumping Texan, okay?
Yes.
And the way I was brought up, my grandmother taught fourth grade for 37 years in the Texas school district. Mexican people hold a special place in my heart. Out of 180 men that died at the Alamo, 61 were Anglo.
Yep.
The rest of them were of Spanish-Mexican descent. The Mexican people that were in Texas at the time contributed to the Republic of Texas freedom.
All right, T. Listen, I got to run. Thanks for the thoughts, my friend. I do appreciate it. I think I'm only going to have time for one more call. It's going to be Mark in Arlington. Mark, welcome to News Talk 820 WBAP. Your thoughts, sir?
Hey, Rob.
Yes, sir.
I'm an old man now, but I just want to tell you about Tex-Mex.
Yeah.
Susan Hernandez, Juanita Machuca, Marie Gonzalez, Minnie Rodriguez. They were four of the best people I've ever worked with in my life. And they were Tex-Mex.
Tex-Mex. All right, Mark. Thank you, my friend. I got to run. As much as I'd love to stick around, I really appreciate you joining me today. Facebook, Rob Carson Show. Twitter, Rob Carson. iTunes, Rob Carson Show. Download the podcast every single day. Have a glorious, glorious evening. And thank you, Kevin, for having me on. Rob Carson on News Talk 820 WBAP.